Well, hello, everybody. I really appreciate you being here tonight to allow me to talk about one of my favorite places to photograph, and that is down in the Everglades. I grew up in Miami and am able to visit the Everglades on a regular basis, and it's just one of my favorite places. It's interesting because I find that there's not a lot of Floridians that go to the Everglades, and so I'm going to share with you how and where to do that. So we're going to be covering tonight. You may have noticed that I used a word on that cover slide called the Everglades Ecosystem. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is the Everglades ecosystem, and then how does that differ from Everglades National Park? Then I'm going to go into where are the best places to take pictures in the Everglades, the best time to take pictures, and then tips for photographing the Everglades. By the way, as we go through this presentation, if you have any questions, you can just enter them into chat, and then at the end of the presentation, we're going to go through those questions. So let's talk about first, what is the Everglades ecosystem? Please look at the map that's on the right-hand side. All the area in green is considered to be part of the Everglades ecosystem, and that's over ecosystem, I'll get it right yet, and that's over 18,000 square miles. It starts just south of Orlando, and then it goes down through the various lakes into the Kissimmee River to Lake Okeechobee, and then out into the flat area below Lake Okeechobee and into the Florida Bay. The ecosystem itself is thousands of years old and includes almost all of South Florida. And what causes the ecosystem is this is an area that's tropical in nature. They get lots of water and lots of rain. And so this water flows from these lakes down to Lake Okeechobee and down that flat area in what is a river of grass flowing to the sea. So what has happened to the Everglades ecosystem? Why is there such a controversy about it? Well, again, let's look at the three maps. First, let's start with the map on the left-hand side. This is the natural flow of the ecosystem as it was for thousands of years. The dark blue area is where the water would flow. The light blue area is the lakes and the rivers. And then the khaki colored is the actual wetlands. If you'll move to the center photo of Florida, this is the current flow of this area. And you notice there is a dramatic difference. The reason is all of these black lines that have been added by man in order to tame that flow and to make land that's available for development and for farming. So the current flow is much smaller, as you can see. However, there is a restoration plan that's in place, and if and when it is finished, it will restore a goodly amount of that flow, about 50%, but not the area north of Lake Okeechobee. So how in the heck did this happen? Well, in 1881, this businessman from the north came down and talked to the legislature in Florida, who was very broke because of the Civil War, and offered to buy 4 million acres of land below Lake Okeechobee. He said that he was going to drain it and turn it into tax dollars, so he was allowed to buy that land. After a few years of attempt, he went belly up and left, but he had started the seed of what could happen in South Florida. Governor Broward was elected on a platform to drain the swamp in 1905, and he started pouring state dollars into draining the swamp and into building these canals. In 1915, a series of businessmen had a great idea of building a road called the Tamiami Trail that would go across South Florida. And in doing so, they actually created a dam that kept water from flowing from north to south. In 1920, there was a Florida land boom where there were hucksters, you've probably read about this, that sold land to people that lived up north, and they came down here thinking they were going to have this wonderful land in Florida, only to find out that most of it was underwater. In 1926 and in 28, there was two devastating hurricanes that flooded the area below Lake Okeechobee, killing hundreds of people, hundreds of farmers and migrant workers and people that lived in the little cities. Consequently, the federal government got involved in 1929 and started pouring federal dollars into taming the water in South Florida, including building an 11-story dike at the south end of Lake Okeechobee to hold the water in. So if that's what the ecosystem is, what is Everglades National Park? Well, again, looking at the map on the right, everything that is circled in green is Everglades National Park. And it was proposed in 1934 by Franklin Roosevelt, who was a lover of the Everglades. Before he came down with polio, he was a fisherman and would fish these waters. And he recommended protecting the ecosystem by developing the national park. And this is the first and only national park that was organized around an ecosystem and not around a beautiful area of terrain that people wanted to save for the future. Unfortunately, by 1934, most of the land was in private hands, and so a lot of negotiations began in order to create the national park. And that park finally opened in 1947, about 2/3 of what the original proposal was. And then in 1994, restoration of the Everglades began amid a lot of controversy. You might ask, why is there controversy about this? And that is because there's multiple constituents and it's all about the water. The citizens of both the East and West Florida want drinking water and want the aquifer protected. The farmers and things like Big Sugar, like U.S. Sugar that owns a lot of land just south of Lake Okeechobee, want the water when they need it for the things that they grow. And then the environmentalists and the sportsmen want the water in a different time frame and in different amounts. Thus is why we have the controversy. So what is the Everglades National Park? It is 1.5 million acres of primarily wetlands. It is the third largest national park in the national park system, behind two that are in Alaska. And it is primarily wetlands with 60 inches of rain per year. Those of us that have lived in South Florida know there's only two seasons in South Florida. There is winter and there is summer. And one of them is wet and one of them is dry. And the wet season is in the summer months when all the big storms come across, and the dry season is in the winter months. The Everglades National Park is full of animals, 350 species of birds, 300 species of fish, 40 species of mammals, and 50 species of reptiles, approximately. I didn't really count them. There are very few roads that go into the Everglades, but there are access points, and this is our starting point for photographing the Everglades. So where are the best places to take pictures? Well, there are two roads, two places that you can really follow to take pictures. The first is this red road, which is Tamiami Trail, going from east to west, from Miami to the west side of the state, and then up to Tampa. And on that road, we're going to talk about the trail itself, Shark Valley, Clyde Butcher's Gallery, Loop Road, Big Cypress Preserve, Marsh Trail, and we're also going to be talking about photographing from a boat. And by the way, as you look at this red trail, you'll notice just to the left of where it says Shark Valley, there is a white road. Has something happened, Jerry? Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but something,
Yep.
this
Jerry,
Zoom thing.
Because it says I'm signed out.
You shouldn't be. You should be okay.
It's got the zoom thing though in front of your map.
I know, I'm trying to move it.
You want to exit out?
I need my IT technician to come over here and remove this.
Okay, hang on.
Hey, Jerry just came from the moon. How cool is that?
It almost looks like he's wearing a Star Trek shirt, doesn't it?
Is this pace going okay for everybody?
Very
Yeah,
good.
it's fine.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you see us all okay?
Yes.
I didn't do that. I didn't touch anything.
It was my fault. Blame me.
It was the IT guy that did it. Okay, what I was talking about, if you'll see the big red letter, Shark Valley Visitor Center, just to the left of that, you see a white line. That is Loop Road, one of the places that we're going to be talking about. But let's start on Tamiami Trail. Tamiami Trail is a 2-lane road that goes across South Florida. It is full of photographers and tourists that kind of lollygag down the road. And it's full of big trucks that like to go 65 or 70 miles an hour. And it's full of people that are trying to commute to their work. And so there's a difference of opinion when you drive down Tamiami Trail about how fast you should be going. I don't know what crazy lady stood in the center of the street and took this picture of the sunset, but I really like the picture. On the north side of Tamiami Trail, which is on your left in this picture, there is a guardrail, and that's the way it is all the way down this road. On the right side, which is the south side of Tamiami Trail, you're looking at, there is a green area that you can, a green belt area that you can pull over and park. So make sure you know which side you're going to pull over on. So Tamiami Trail was built between 1915 and 1926 at the cost of $7 million. It was started again by a businessman who had this grand idea. He convinced the legislature to let him put his money because it was going to be good for his company, because he had oil wells that were out there. And the way that you would have to build this road is by dynamiting the coral rock, pulling the coral rock out of the hole that you made, and then forming the road. Well, Mr. Jardin, who was the one who had the idea, was quickly out of business. So then another businessman, Baron Collier, who was in advertising in the state of Florida, among other things, approached the legislature. He said that he would be willing to finish the road using his own money if the legislature would do one thing. All he wanted was the legislature to create a county and name it after him. And that's where Collier County came from. So this is the gate going into Collier County when the road actually opened. It would take 3 days to drive the road, and they built 6 gas stations along the way. So when you drive down Tamiami Trail, these are the type of views that you're able to see. They are drop dead gorgeous. So you can understand why the tourists and the environment and the photographers are lollygagging as they drive down that road, because they're looking for the right place to pull over for them to take a picture. You're going to see vistas like this. You will see birds like these roseate spoonbills that had to be no more than 35 feet off the highway. When I pulled over, jumped out of the car with my camera and prayed that they wouldn't fly away, which they didn't. They stood there and posed for me about 15 minutes to get these pictures. You'll also see many flocks of birds fly in and out of this area because of the number of rookeries that are here. And again, I am right on, just pulled off the highway, taking this picture of the birds flying in one evening at sunset. There's also many flowers, such as this swamp lily that you can take pictures of. But one of the most fun of all is to take pictures of the setting sun. So many people said that you can, many people at sunset will just pull their cars over, lean against it and watch the sunset and watch the birds fly over. Absolutely gorgeous. So as you're leaving Miami and traveling down Tamiami Trail, the first opportunity to take pictures other than from the highway is at a place called Shark Valley. Shark Valley is a depression in the ground where the water gathers coming down from the north and then flows into the Shark River and then into the Florida Bay. There is a 15-mile loop trail in Shark Valley, which is part of Everglades National Park. You can walk that trail, you can ride a bicycle, you can either bring your bicycle or rent a bicycle, or there is a tram that you can ride. I think you have to pay to ride the tram. I've never done it, but I think you have to pay to ride the tram. I usually walk it because not the whole 15 miles, but I walk as long as until I'm tired and then I turn around and come back because I'm carrying my camera. This particular bird, a little blue heron, was no more than probably 12 feet from the path that I was on when I took his picture as he snatched his breakfast that day. You can also see the wonderful purple gallinules, which is this bird on the left, as well as the yellow-crowned night heron. Many, many, many different types of birds and animals, alligators are in Shark Valley. About halfway around the loop, there's also an observation tower that you can climb up, and it's pretty high. I don't know how high it is, but it's pretty high, and you can look out across the wetlands and see the beauty of the Everglades. If you want to go to Shark Valley, my advice is to go early. The parking lot fills up quickly, particularly if you want to rent a bicycle or if you want a parking spot. Otherwise, you're going to be parking out on the highway and hiking into Shark Valley. As you leave Shark Valley, the next place that you'll want to stop is Clyde Butcher's Big Cypress Studio. Many of you've heard of Clyde Butcher. He's referred to as the Ansel Adams of the Everglades. He is a wonderful photographer who for years has taken pictures of Florida, but also takes pictures in other areas. But he's primarily known for his pictures of Florida. This particular picture on this sheet is one of my pictures. I posted it here because it was taken from the parking lot of Clyde Butcher's studio. Right next to the parking lot, there's this wonderful wetland area with beautiful cypress trees, always has birds and other animals in there for you to photograph. If you look down on the left-hand corner, this is Clyde and his wife, Nikki. This was taken in the backyard of the studio where they lived, and then behind where they lived, the wetlands continued. And he would use these large format cameras to take his gorgeous photos. He no longer lives there. He had a stroke a few years back, and he's now in Venice, but he does make the trip on a regular basis to the Big Cypress Gallery. And he now uses a digital camera rather than these large Cypress cameras. If you look at the green area up on top, this is the Tamiami Trail and where you turn into Clyde's studio. You can't miss it. There's a great big sign, and there's also a very tall American flag that you can see from the distance. When you go in, it's like walking into a sanctuary, at least for photographers. Look at these gorgeous photos that are posted in the gallery. You can look at the photos, you can talk to people about them, you can buy the photos. There's originals as well as limited editions. You can buy his books, note cards, and other items. It is a must-see place if you're ever down in this area. This is one of Clyde's photos. It was taken from the Tamiami Trail in the summer months when these storms were coming across, and it is in the area of Ochopi that we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes. After you pass Clyde's studio, the next place that you'll see is Loop Road. which I pointed out that was that white road that came off of Tamiami Trail. Loop Road is a 27-mile dirt road. It was the original path that Jardin had promoted to be the Tamiami Trail. And this was because he had several oil wells in this area, as well as the small town of Pinecrest. And he wanted to turn Pinecrest into the next Miami. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. And when Collier took over the building of the road, he nixed this particular route and straightened out the road. Now, when you drive down that road, it is not uncommon to see exactly what you see in this picture. And that is an alligator sauntering across the road that you have to wait on. I usually go into Loop Road on the western entrance rather than the eastern entrance. The western entrance was where one of the 6 gas stations were built. This one was called Monroe Station. It's a very famous place that had served many different subjects along the way. It used to be stores, it used to be signs. You could get married there. You could do almost anything at Monroe Station. However, it eventually closed and was abandoned. And the picture down here on the right-hand side was one of the last pictures that were ever taken by Monroe Station at Monroe Station. And that is because a photographer was standing on top of Monroe Station doing something that's called spinning, which is where you take steel wool, you have it on a chain, you ignite the steel wool and you spin it. And when he did that, of course, the sparks fell on Monroe Station and it was history. So now all there is a parking lot. If you go in from that parking lot onto Loop Road, the first thing you're going to be at is a pygmy cypress forest, which is absolutely gorgeous. If you get there at dawn, hopefully you'll get beautiful sunrise colors. Otherwise, at this dawn, instead, I got mist that was rising up from the sawgrass. And it's just a beautiful area. It's full of birds flying with many different ways that you can take pictures. A few more miles up the road, 5 miles to be exact, there is a 90-degree turn to the left where you get to my absolute favorite places to take photos in the Everglades. This is a Sweetwater Strand. It is an area that opens up where they have part of the restoration project. They have built a dam which allow the water to flow through. This is the Sweetwater Slough that's flowing through, and it is a gorgeous area. And what makes it so beautiful, as you can see from the right, is the water is incredibly still and it is incredibly clear. So you can get photos like this on the left of an egret looking for its breakfast. And you can also get photos like this on the right, which is an air plant, an epiphyt that is growing on one of the cypress trees. Here is a little blue heron at Sweetwater Strand that is climbing down a large cypress tree to get to his breakfast. And as you can see what I said, the water is like a mirror. In fact, I call this photo Mirror, Mirror. And he is looking for his breakfast. And you can also see everything that's growing under the water. These are 3 of my favorite photos that I've taken at Sweetwater Strand. First is the egret on the left-hand side. The middle one is a green heron, which I just took this past November when I was down in the Everglades. And on the right, you can see an ibis. Again, the water's so still that you get these beautiful, beautiful reflections. Once you leave Loop Road, you're going to pass one of the most interesting things you're going to see on Tamiami Trail, and that is the Ochopi Post Office. Yes, this is a working post office. It is the smallest post office in the United States. It's open 6 days a week. You can see the hours there printed on the side. And the very nice postman is very happy to post for you when you want to take pictures. So don't miss stopping at the Ochopi post office. Now, as you continue on, one of the things that happens as you get further down, we're out of the Everglades now and in the Big Cypress Preserve. On the north side of Big Cypress Preserve, you see what looks like a prairie. There is water up there, but there's a lot more land. Whereas on the south side, you're still seeing the wetlands. In the prairie, there's a number of roads that you can take to go up into the prairie area to photograph. One of them is Turner River Road. Another one is Bird On Road. Yes, they really did name a road Bird On Road. And it's one of my favorites. In fact, this picture was taken from Bird On Road. In the prairie, you're going to see different things than you're going to see in the wetlands. You'll see many more hawks. You will see eagles. You will see deer. You'll see kingfishers, such as this one here. And you'll also see beautiful grasslands that bloom and that you can photograph. You'll also see butterflies. This is the Florida state butterfly, which is called the zebra, I wrote it down, zebra longwing. So I photographed this up in the prairie area in the Big Cypress Preserve. As you continue down Tamiami Trail, you're going to get to the west coast of Florida, and the trail is actually going to turn north. For a number of miles, it remains being a 2-lane road until it gets up to Marco Island, and then it's going to go to a 4-lane road, and then it's going to go to a 6-lane road. But when you're still on the 2-lane road, one of the most accessible areas is right there on the left-hand side, and it's called Marsh Trail. It's hard to believe, but there are 100 permits in South Florida to drill for oil. And Marsh Trail was an active oil well until the land was ceded to the government to become 10,000 Island National Preserve. And so they had to stop the oil well. The trail itself that went down to the oil well is a dirt road. It's about a mile down and a mile back that goes through wonderful wetlands that are full of beautiful birds, such as these two egrets that were chasing each other. It is not unusual to see this type of variety of birds on Marsh Trail. This is the kind of thing that we sometimes see down in Black Point and Titusville, but here you're in a much more tropical area with mangroves, many different varieties of ducks, and many different varieties of birds. I've never really counted how many different types of birds are in this picture. You also will see an abundance of alligators. In fact, you'll see alligators all over South Florida, but particularly on Marsh Trail, you will see them. And if you're fortunate, you will see roseate spoonbills. This particular picture on the right hangs over my fireplace. I call it after the Rolling Stones song, Get Off of My Cloud, because the two roseates were competing to see who was going to be top dog and standing on top of this mangrove. One of the gorgeous things about Marsh Trail is that it has a 3-story observation tower where you can climb up and watch sunset, and you can see the birds flying into the Marsh Trail rookery. If you'll look in the green area, you can see all of the birds that have come in to spend the night. And there'll be many more before they have stopped coming in, because they continue to fly in after sunset and into the dark of night. And you can hear them coming in. You can hear their wings flapping as they're flying into the rookery. One of my favorite things to do from that observation tower is not so much to photograph the setting sun, to photograph the results of the setting sun turning the water to gold. as the birds are down into the water. So now we'll move in to talk about photographing from a boat. Because of it being 60% water, one of the best ways to access this area is from a boat. And there are many boats that you can rent. You can go out with a guide. You can go out from both the East Coast and the West Coast Visitor Center at Everglades National Park that have boat tours that you can go out on. You can go out on kayaks, although I'm always a little hesitant about a kayak with all these alligators, but you can go out on canoes. There are many, many canoes that go like down the Turner River. This particular picture was taken in Kunki Pass in the 10,000 Island National Wildlife Refuge. The sun was setting behind me, and of course, this is the light reflecting on the other side from the sunset. This is another picture taken in the 10,000 Islands National Wildlife 10,000 Islands. It's not a wildlife refuge, it's a national preserve. One thing about going out in the 10,000 islands, and there really are 10,000 islands, is you've got to have a good navigation system so that you can find your way back, because it's very easy to get confused along the way. And an even more fun is to go out on an airboat. Now, you're not allowed to have airboats within the national park. However, airboats, commercial airboats are available within the Big Cypress Preserve and the 10,000 Island Preserve. And it is super fun to go out on one of them. My recommendation is to take the last tour of the day. If you'll do that, you'll be getting gorgeous color like what you see in this picture on the wetlands. But you also will probably be the only person on the airboat, because other people tend to go earlier. And you can say, hey, I'm not one of the northern tourists here to see alligators. I'm here because I want to see the vistas and the birds. So here are the type of pictures that you can get from an airboat as you come around the corner. And these beautiful, beautiful birds all through this area. Or you can see vistas like the one on the left. And of course, you're going to see gators. This is a little teenage alligator over here on the right. But do take the time to go out on an airboat ride. Loads of fun. Take your camera. So now we're going to take a different route into the Everglades to take pictures. And we're going to head south from Homestead, where we're actually going to go into the Everglades National Park on the road to Flamingo. And I want to say right from the beginning, I'd like to thank Bob Richardson, who I know is online right now. Bob was very kind to share with me some of his photos. Because I focused primarily on the Tamiami Trail, I only had a handful of photos from this particular access point. But Bob, who has recently moved to the Jacksonville area from South Florida, had many. And thank you, Bob. And I will be pointing out Bob's photos as we go through here. So now we're going to go down the purple route, the road to Flamingos, State Road 9336. We're going to go to the Mahogany Overlook. We'll be stopping at Pine Glades Lake. We'll be seeing beautiful photos from Double Dome. We'll see the Milky Way from the Mahogany Trail. And then we're going to end at the Echo Pond that's actually in Flamingo. So just like the Tamiami Trail, the road to Flamingo has beautiful vistas on either side as you're traveling down the road. Unlike the Tamiami Trail, you don't have any of the crazy people driving 65 and 70 miles an hour trying to pass you. You only have people like yourself that are looking at the beautiful, enjoying Everglades National Park. This particular sunset photo was taken by Bob Richardson of a mangrove. And I love the way he's used the leading lines to bring us into the picture and to frame the setting sun. Beautiful, Bob. Bob also frequents during the summer months, which I tend not to. So he's able to get pictures of lightning storms like this one. The lightning storms, the big storms are primarily in the summer months, not in the winter months, although you do get a handful in winter, but most of the time you're going to get these types of pictures during the summer. This picture was taken from the Ochopi overlook. This is a that stands for grassy waters. It is an Indian word, and you can see it is also of a pygmy forest, just like the one that I showed you from Loop Road. This is a very short boardwalk that you can enter right from the road. You can pull off the road into the parking lot and walk around this boardwalk and get pictures like this. Further down the road, there is a longer trail called the Long Pine Nature Trail. Not very far down the Long Pine Nature Trail is this beautiful Pine Glades Lake. This is, again, one of Bob's sunset pictures where, again, he has masterfully used leading lines to bring your eye into the picture and to focus on the gorgeous scenery. Thank you, Bob. This is just absolutely gorgeous. By the way, as you enter the Everglades National Park, you, of course, are going to be given a map that outlines all the different trails that you can take. Some of them are very, very short, but some of them are quite long. So I would encourage you to research, if you're going to go in this area, to research the trails and determine in advance which ones you might like to follow. This is my favorite picture of Bob's, and this is near Double Dome. Now you may ask, what in the heck is a dome? Well, a dome is a geological feature that you can find in Florida. You can also, there's actually some in Georgia and even up into South Carolina. But it is an area where the water is deeper and where the water accumulates and it stays wet even during the summer months. And because of that, the trees that grow in the center of a dome grow much higher. Whereas surrounding the dome, there is a bank, and the trees on that are much shorter. So if you are viewing this from outside, it actually looks like a dome. And so Bob took this gorgeous photo on the way to Double Dome. It's just beautiful. And here is a picture of Bob's from inside of Double Dome. And you can see the deep water that's inside and the beautiful trees that are towering above your head. Bob, you had to have been standing in the water when you took this picture, I would imagine. This is Mahogany Hammock, which is a little bit further down from where the trail is to the Dome and Double Dome. This is the Mahogany Hammock Trail is only a half a mile. It is a boardwalk, and it is a beautiful place to take a picture of the Milky Way. The Everglades is a dark sky area, so there is very, very few lights. So there's wonderful opportunities to take pictures of the Milky Way. However, just a word of caution or a word of advice, I would definitely do what Bob has done here. I would, if you're going to be standing out in the Everglades or in Big Cypress Preserve in the middle of the night, a good idea would be to be standing on a boardwalk or to be standing on the road or to be standing on a wide trail. I wouldn't be standing out in the wetlands because of all the critters that are out there. And then the last thing that we're going to look at is Echo Pond. Echo Pond is at the very end of the road to Flamingo. It is a lake that is frequented by lots of birds, and it has a trail and some boardwalk areas around the pond. I was very fortunate the day that I was there to capture the roseate spoonbills enjoying taking a bath in Echo Pond. So when you get down to Flamingo, there is a great the Flamingo Visitor Center where you can learn more about the Everglades. There used to be both a hotel and a restaurant, but unfortunately those were destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. I've not heard any talk of anybody going back to build another hotel and another restaurant down in Flamingo because of the lack of funds in the national park system. But there's lots of things to see down there, and you can rent a boat or go on a tour from the Flamingo Visitor Center. So I just want to summarize what we've talked about, the best places to take pictures. The first one was the Tamiami Trail, US 41, that goes across the top of Everglades National Park, allowing you to go in at Sharp Valley. It then goes into the Big Cypress Preserve and the 10,000 Islands Preserve. Many places to photograph on the roads, north and south, and also in the various trails. Then the second one was the road to Flamingo. It's State Road 9336, which goes from Homestead down to Florida Bay. It takes about, it's 35 miles long, the road to Flamingo, and it takes about an hour to drive it, depending on how many times you stop. It can take you all day because of the beautiful things that you will see. So now let's talk about some other things. What are the best times to take pictures? Well, in the summer, you can get during the wet season, you're going to get big dramatic storms. That's when a lot of photographers like to take pictures in the Everglades. It's also where Clyde Butcher took most of his pictures, was during the summer months. In the winter months, you're in the dry season, there's less water, there's fewer bugs, and there's a lot more birds. And the winter season is the one that I favor. The best times, just like all other photography, are going to be early in the morning or late in the afternoon. This is because this is when the sunlight is going through more of the atmosphere. It's getting softer and getting those beautiful golden tones to it. It's also because this is when you're able to create better depth of field. You know, photography is just a two-dimensional art. And so to create that depth, you need things like shadows, and you get much longer shadows in the early morning and the late afternoon to help you create that depth. The other things is the overcast days. You might have noticed that most of the pictures that I took on Loop Road was during an overcast day. And that's because during the overcast day, you don't have the hot spots from the sun and the the shadows, the deep shadows from the shade. So if I'm down in this area and I see that it's going to be overcast, I grab my camera and I head for Loop Road. So I'm going to give you some tips now for photographing in the Everglades. The first tip is going to be where to stay. If you're going to be on the Tamiami Trail, you can stay in Everglades City, which was a city that was built by Collier when he was building the Tamiami Trail. It is a fascinating little city with great little restaurants. It's where the boats come in with the stone crab claws, so you can get great seafood there. It has its own history, which is fascinating. The Big Cypress Preserve also has 8 campgrounds. Some of them take RVs. Many of them, all of them, I think, will take tents. And if you're going to go on the road down to Flamingo, you're going to be day tripping from Homestead in Florida City, where there are many different hotels and VRBOs and things like that that you could rent. So let's talk about how to stay safe when you're photographing in the Everglades. The first thing I've already touched on, you need to pull way off the roadway, particularly if you're on the Tamiami Trail. And you need to pull off on the south side of the roadway, not on the side that just has that metal railing. I've seen many people just pull off at the metal railing, and they really cause a traffic jam. It's very dangerous. If you want to photograph from the north side of the Tamiami Trail, what you're going to have to do is pull off on the south side, walk across the road, climb over the railings, and then stand with your back to the road where you have the metal guardrail protecting you. The second thing in order to stay safe is to watch where you walk. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of animals. There's a lot of gators. So just be careful and cognizant of where you are walking when you're out and about taking your pictures. I always wear waterproof boots when I'm in the Everglades, just so if I want to go into the water, I can, or if I accidentally step in the water, I'm okay. But you can also wear waders if you want to go into deeper water and on some of those trails. You should take your bug spray. You should particularly going to need your bug spray during the summer months. You're going to need it sometimes during the winter months, depending on the weather. And speaking about the weather, you should have a lot of respect for the storms as they come through. If you're out and about and you hear lightning and you're away from your car, you should head for your car. The last thing you want to do is to be the tallest thing standing when a lightning storm goes by. So just be careful in what you do. And lastly, I encourage you to go with a friend. There is not any very little cell phone coverage down in this area, particularly when you're down off of these roads. So if something were to happen to you, you would want to have a friend to be able to help you out. And although I didn't put this bullet on, make sure you have a full tank of gas when you head out. There's not a whole lot of gas stations, and you've got to know where they are so that you won't run out of gas. So now let's talk about your tips for actually taking pictures. There are 3 main subjects that you're going to take pictures of in the Everglades. 1 is going to be landscapes, 2 is going to be birds, and 3 is going to be flowers. There is a 4th one, the night sky, of course, but I'm not going to cover that in this presentation. Let's talk first of all about landscapes. You are photographing a very flat area of land. I suggest that you pack your wide angle lenses when you go. And as you take pictures, try to either get low or to get high. You can get high by being on the top of an observation tower, by being on top of a boardwalk, even by standing on the bumper of your car. I've even seen people stand on the top of their car to get the right type of picture. But you want to do that so that you can get a good perspective. Include the sky in your photo. There's beautiful skies and clouds in the Everglades. And do your best to find the leading lines. I think you saw on Bob Richardson's photos the great job that he did in finding leading lines to take the viewer into the picture. The leading lines can be rocks, it can be a tree that has fallen, it can be a pathway, it can be a waterway, but whatever you can find that's going to pull your viewer into the picture. If you are there to photograph birds, the most important recommendation I have is to expose for the bird. You can always work out the background in post-processing, but if you blow out the bird and don't get the detail, you're going to end up throwing away that photo. And as you can see, many of the birds that are in South Florida are white. And so this is very, very important as you are doing your exposures to make sure that you're having detail in the birds. You're going to use a fast shutter speed in order to make sure that your pictures are sharp if the birds move. And if you're doing what I call a bird portrait, you notice that the pictures that I shared with you from Sweetwater Strand, the main subject was the bird itself. I was taking a portrait of that bird. I used a shallow depth of field so that the bird was sharp, but the background was it was more fuzzy so that it didn't take attention away from the bird. If in fact, though, that you're taking pictures of a field of birds, like the one I showed you at Marsh Trail, where there were many birds, you're going to need to use a deeper depth of field so that everything is in focus from front to back. Lastly, when you're photographing birds, you have to be patient. Anybody who's done bird photography knows that it is not easy. You have to be patient. You have to wait for the bird to be in the right place, to be looking in the right direction, to have the right light on them, and to be doing something in order to get a great bird photo. Lastly, if you're photographing plants and flowers, just like for the bird, you want to make sure that you're exposing for the flower so that you're getting details in that flower. The two pictures that I included in here where I had flowers, they were both white flowers, and I had to expose for that white in order to get details in the flower. You want to get close and use your macro lens if you have brought your macro lens with you, or you can always use the telephoto to isolate what you're trying to take a picture of. That picture I shared with you of the prairie grass, I used a telephoto lens where I was able to take a picture of something that was in the distance, but used a shallow depth of field, isolating those prairie grasses as they bloomed. So that's it for my presentation, and I want to open it up to any questions. Jerry, can you share with us the questions that have come up?
So far, the one that we have is, how long is the Tamiami Trail? And I looked it up, it's 275 miles.
Yes, it is. It is 275 miles, but that is the distance from Miami all the way up to Tampa. It is not that far if you're just doing the South Florida. I never could find exactly what it was, but it's, I don't know, it takes a little bit more than an hour to drive down, and an hour and a half probably, depending on how fast you're able to go and how many photographers there are in front of you.
The other question is, can you walk it? Which obviously it's too long to walk, but where are the places you can walk?
There are many, many places that you can walk. Marsh Trail would be my first recommendation of where you can walk. That, of course, is in the 10,000 Islands National Preserve. You can also walk Shark Valley. I don't ride a bike and I don't do a tram. I always do the walking when I am in Shark Valley. Any of these other places, when you stop by the road, you can walk along the road. You may want to do that, or you may not want to do that. But the areas, Sweetwater Strand, I've walked probably a couple of miles down Loop Road, looking at each one of the areas, taking photos. So that is highly walkable.
When you're doing your portraits, are you primarily using spot metering, or how are you metering?
Yes, I am. I'm using a spot meter to take shots, to expose for the bird, and then I am checking my photo, the first few photos, making sure that I've got details, and then I'm locking in those settings for the rest of my photos.
Ask if anybody else has any questions.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you, everybody. I enjoyed sharing with you what is one of my favorite areas. I'm headed back down there in 2 weeks, and I hope I'm going to get a lot of good photos. Oh, wait. What was that message that just got? Did it say how many miles it was?
From Miami to Naples is 85 miles.
85 miles. Okay, there you go. That's why it's about an hour and a half to get there, depending on who's driving and how much you're willing to pass people. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Gene.
You are welcome.
Great job.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Gene. Excellent.
Beautiful.
Really
Beautiful.
appreciated it.
Thank you, Jean.
You are welcome.
I just
Jerry,
wanted to add-
Tim is asking if the October meeting got recorded. Is that the one you missed? Do you remember?
I missed the astrophotography one. Which one was that? The October meeting?
I don't remember.
But there is one. Oh, the print results. Yes, it did get recorded. And I think it's even out there, but if not, I'll have to check it and see. but we did record the print results.
I'd just like to add, when I first met Jean, when she came to the club, she introduced me to going to the Everglades. Do you remember that, Jean? How many
I
years ago
do.
that
I wrote up a
happened?
couple
Oh
of
my God.
pages. I wrote up a couple of pages of notes
I
for you, I
know.
remember.
And I did go down, and a lot of what she talked about, was wonderful. It really was. And what she didn't mention, though, was all of the alligators in Shark Valley. That was a big surprise for me. You're walking and alligators like on the right and left, but yeah, she was wonderful in giving me this whole itinerary. Maybe about 6-7 years ago, I guess.
Oh, at least, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was wonderful. I don't have as many great photographs as hers, but it was a wonderful experience, especially on the airboat. So,
And I saw somebody put a comment in about Everglades City, but I didn't read the comment. Could whoever made the comment about Everglades City share it with the group?
somebody talked about fishing or something.
There was, yeah, if you like to snook fishing, there's plenty of guides there that can take you out fishing.
Wonderful guides. And Bob, I wanted to thank you again for sharing your photos with me for the presentation. I wondered if you wanted to add anything to the presentation.
Well, thank you. It was a very nice presentation on your part. But as you're going down Tamiami Trail, if you're there, there's several other places to stop along the way and do all kinds of photography and boardwalks. There's now I've had a brain.
The Storter Trail, the Storter Boardwalk is one of them.
Yes.
Yes, that's a wonderful boardwalk.
That's a great place to go, and for the night photography there is also great. If you go in late April, early May, you can get the Milky Way all the way across Miami, which you're about 60 miles from Miami at that point. So, and then of course in Homestead, Everglades, there's a guy that I know that wrote a book about taking pictures actually in both both parts of the Everglades by Robert Chaplin. It's a photographic tour of the Everglades or something like that, but it's a small book that fits in your pocket, and you can buy it at any of the stores that are there. You know, so
Very awesome.
that'll give you a hint of where to go take pictures. He's a pretty good photographer, and I think we're talking about getting him to come up and talk to the club one day in the next year or so.
That'd be great.
An opening.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
He's also your friend that he's the one that's good at lightning too, right, Bob?
Right. He does a lot of lightning photography. He'll talk about just about anything that you want him to talk about, but he's just a really nice guy, and he'll come up and he'll talk for free, and he'll do
Free is good.
Free.
yeah. Well, he'll come visit me and he'll talk to you guys, everybody.
Sounds like a plan.
Very gregarious, but
Bob, what's
yeah.
his first name? I forgot it already.
Robert Chaplin is his name.
Got it.
Just a quick comment. If anybody wants to find the prior meetings, they're on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about where to find those or where they did, just drop me a mail and I'll shoot you a link.
And Roxanne, thank you for reminding me that I needed a glass of wine for this presentation.
Of course, I must take care of your needs.
That's right. Thank you, Roxanne.
You must not have that man after to get you that glass of wine. So glad Jerry, accommodated us. Or you, I should say. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm having my own glass of wine, so that
He is.
Yeah. Oh,
Because-
you're on.
Jerry, this is
Oh, you're
Don.
boss, Jerry.
Like a clown, I went to the library. So you've been getting early, just a quick announcement from F3C if I can.
Sure,
Awesome.
go right ahead.
So F3C is open now for the whole month, digital, and they've put in a new category, and they're calling it interpretive. So we have color, monochrome, creative, documentary, and now interpretive. The beginner's color is gone. So if you've never submitted before, it doesn't matter. You're going to go as soon as you get 3 ribbons, you go into the advanced anyway. So the beginner's color is gone. So the interpretive, and I'm going to read you what they say, so I don't get the blame for this. So photographers are experimenting more with digital processing and in-camera creativity, producing images that may not compete well in any of our existing categories. Many members across the state have asked for more flexibility because we want to retain the traditional nature of the existing color category. We created a new category that would fall between color and creative. If we simply added another category, it would spread out the total number of images submitted too thinly. The result would be fewer ribbons awarded in each category. Only by removing something can the new category be implemented, and for this reason, there's no longer a beginner's class in color. What they're saying is, this is the sort of, as they say, it goes between creative and color. It's the sort of photograph where you maybe oversaturate a sunset, or you vividly change what your picture looks like. It might be a garbage picture and you think, well, it looks a lot better if I do it this way. Well, you might do it intentionally. But the idea is that you can submit that because you're not creating something. It's not creative. And it's not color because it's not natural. So that's the best description I can give you from what I've seen. So the only way to find out is put pictures into F3C and bring on the club. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thanks.
Sorry you went to the library. I'll text you next time.
Thank you very much. I wasn't the only one, but I'm not going to blow the whistle on who else was there.
Well, who will I know how will I know who to text?
Well, I'm not going to blow the whistle.
Okay, I'll text you, you text them.
Yeah, okay.
Anybody else have another question? All right. Well, thank you, Gene, very, very much. It was
great.
Great presentation. And we'll see you all in a month.
And thank you too, Jerry. Thanks, Gene.
Thank you, guys.
Good job, Gene. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you so much, Gene. It was wonderful.
It was
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome, everybody. I'm going to finish my wine.